taking a look at the rear brake caliper seizing issue. We're losing brake fluid, so I think the rear calipers are seized and leaking. We'll have a look. This side seems to be worse, although the actual disc looks better than the other side. The other side doesn't seem to be leaking. The leak is coming from the passenger side, but the caliper on this one is horrible. I don't know, or not the caliper, but the disc. I'm not sure if you can see that. So I might have found the problem on the passenger side. I don't actually think this caliper is seized. That's why the brake surface seems like it's actually working properly, as opposed to the other side, which is just rusted. So on this, it seems like the fluid that we're losing is because this is not tight. Looks like it loosened up over time. So I decided to take both sides off, even though the other one was just leaking off the brake line. I just didn't like the way it looked. I'll show you right away. So this is the driver's side. This is what it looks like. So this looks like this brake has never been used. So obviously either the piston inside is seized, or the pins that make it travel along right in here. I mean, this should be free to move, so the pads wear evenly. So once we take them off, we'll have a look and see what's going on there. So this one, I'm glad I took it off. I didn't think it was seized, but after I took it off, the front of the disc is okay, but the rear, I don't know if I can get a good look at it, is basically not used. So I think the same thing is happening here. This carriage is not moving back and forth. Probably these pins inside here are seized. So we'll have to free those up. Also, if you look at the pads, the rear pad has nothing left on it. Meaning it was either basically grinding away as it was driven, because this was seized. So chances are this was basically just getting ground off, generating heat and screwing up your battery range. So to remove these, just the caliper itself, you need a 15 mil for the two bolts holding that caliper on, and then you need to separate the brake cable. To do that, you just push back on this cam, and then this just pops right out of here. And then there's a little clip in here. We'll take that, press the little tabs, and the plastic will slide out this way towards the back, and then we'll undo this line again that was loose, so we can get this caliper onto the bench and have a look at it. Okay, so I got this on the bench. This is what the pad looks like. Basically nothing left here. We'll have to look at the rotors and the discs, or the discs, and see if we need to have them replaced, or we can just turn them. So the piston is not seized. If you click to test that, is you can just kind of put pressure on here. You can see it's moving. What was seized is this carriage, like I suspected. So I gave it a few whacks with a hammer here on both sides a little bit, and it freed up just enough for me to move it, but it's still not, it should be working freely. So you gotta put quite a bit of pressure on this. So what we'll do is we'll take off these little bolts here. This side has, I think what this is just like a vibration dampener or something. So we'll clean all this up, and then we'll take off this this bolt here as well. and then we'll slide this out, take the boots off, and take some very fine sandpaper or Scotch-Brite and clean up the inside and the outside of both of these pins here, and then we should be good to go. We'll just lube it up with some grease. We should be good to go, and we'll do the same thing to the second side. And both retaining screw bolts are out. This one is a 10 mil, this one is a 13 mil. Once those are out, then we should be able to take this apart here. Okay, both pins are out. They are not the same, so be careful when you're assembling this back together. The pin with the dampener has a rubber bushing or some sort of a dampening thing on it. I think that's kind of works in conjunction with the actual dampener. So I cleaned them up with some Scotch-Brite, and we'll refill it with a couple of squirts of grease, and we'll reassemble this. The boots look good. There's no tears or cracks in them, so it's just a matter of freeing these up, cleaning them up, and then reassembling this back together, and then I'll have to get new pads. Cleaned up, greased. Beauty. And then we'll go get some pads. One thing before you guys put the pads in, I'll show you later, but these appear to be screw-in type of pistons. So when you put fresh pads on them, you'll have to screw this in to be able to get over the disc or the rotor. Some of them you just press this in, but on these it looks like these are screw-in. That's why they have these notches. Right now, no binding. I will just get some pads and take the other one out, do the same thing to it, and then put some pads. I went and ordered the rotors as well. They're not that expensive. They're just a Chevy Cruise rotor, I think. You'll need a T30 Torx to remove this retaining screw here, and then probably have to give it a good whack with a hammer to loosen this off. And, oh, actually you don't. This came right off. This is what the rotor looks like. See, this rotor has not been used. All it was doing is just rubbing, and I don't know if this is pad material or what the hell this is, just seized onto it, just basically rust and crap. I'm not gonna bother rebuilding this rotor. They're about 50 bucks each or something. We'll just put new ones on. So the driver's side is connected right on the car, the carriage, so I don't have to deal with bleeding the full brake system. Hopefully I can just get away with bleeding the passenger side. So we'll do the same thing here. We'll separate these and grease them and clean them and grease them. New brake pads, new rotors, some brake fluid. Well, the brake pads have these little clips on them. So this hardware has to be replaced too. It's quite important, I think, because the old ones were seized to the actual, the pads were seized to the actual hardware. So those will need to be replaced. So the new hardware is in, and then I'm using a needle nose plier to make the adjustment to the piston. So there's a special tool for this, obviously, but I don't have it. So needle nose works just as well, and then you just turn it in as much as you need to back off that piston, so you can install the new pads, which are much thicker now. Over time that piston just comes out, right? These pads are much thicker. So these pads are not the same. There's a wear indicator here, and the one with the wear indicator goes to the piston side. When you're adjusting your piston, you have to make sure that the notches are facing straight up and down, because the pad has a little dimple on it right here that has to sit inside one of the notches. Oh, I love fresh hardware on a car. The pads are in. So like I said, it's important to line up that notch to make sure the pads seat correctly on the back side. Now you guys don't have to bleed this system. Do not open this screw here or the bleeder, which is somewhere in here. There it is. Don't open any of this. Don't bleed the system if you're just changing your pads. I'm gonna have to bleed it because I opened the screw up here because it was loose to begin with, and I opened it up to clean it, to clean that seating surface. So I'm gonna have to bleed the system. Okay, both discs are on and pads. So if you get to this step, you should be good to go. Me, I have to, if you're just changing the pads, I'm gonna have to bleed this passenger side. So what I'll do, I'm gonna remove this once again, and I'm gonna fill this piston as much as I can with brake fluid, just so I don't have to get as much air out of the system. Okay guys, I got the system bled. There was quite a bit of air in there. Use your normal bleeding procedure for this. This is just like any other car. You'll need a 10 mil for your bleeding screw. If you've bled the system correctly, you should be able afterwards to move this caliper by hand, or this caliper, the wheel by hand. It should spin. If there's air in the system, you'll have a hard time doing that. And also your brake pedal should be firm on the first press. It should not go down to the floor. Yeah, you get lots of pressure there. So put the wheels back on and go for a rip and see if they resolve the issues. Okay, everything seems to be working good. The brakes are awesome now. No squealing, no weird noises. E-brake works good. So I think we fixed it. Like I said, the bleeding procedure, there's a bunch of stuff online that says you can't do it this way, you can't do it this way. I just did a normal bleeding procedure on it. The brake pedal feels awesome, doesn't feel spongy. Feels great. So yeah, just treat it like any other car. Bleed it the same way. Pump, release, until you get all the air out of it. The only thing left for me to do now is to make sure that I drive it for a while and make sure that I'm not losing fluid anymore, which I shouldn't be, because that screw has been tightened now. And so yeah, I think we fixed it. The only other thing is when I had that leak, you could hear your brake booster come on way more often than now. I've been pumping these brakes by the garage for probably 20-30 seconds, and that booster only came on once. Before, when that leak was there, that booster was losing pressure, so it was pumping up a lot more. So that's another thing that might give you an indication that there's a problem. All right.